back to Drunk on Writing and the latest episode of the Tarantino Dissection. It's brought to you in part through the patronage of Ariya Norinth. Today, in this special dissection excerpt, we're taking a closer look at Pulp Fiction's final chapter, the Bonnie situation, originally titled Jules, Vincent, Jimmy, and the Wolf. Bit on the nose, that one. But the Bonnie situation brings us way back to the beginning, right where we left off with Jules and Vincent. In fact, we see a portion of those earlier scenes again from a new perspective, the fourth man, played by Alexis Arquette. But because of either his terrible aim, or perhaps if you fall into Jules's line of thinking, the touch of God, and perhaps an editing mistake or two, we're treated to a miracle, and what we're told is a radical shift in Sam Jackson's character. While we've only spent a few minutes with Jules at this point, nowhere is this more apparent than in the final way he uses his favorite Bible passage. But we'll get there in a moment, because first, I want to talk about Vincent. In fact, I want to posit something. If we had seen this Vincent earlier in the film, before On a Date Vincent, how would we feel about his character? How would we feel about his connection with Mia? Because at this point in the film, I rather like Vincent. But at this point in the film, we'd yet to see, well, any of this. Sure, we'd already witnessed Brett's execution, but he kind of sucked, and it was stylized. Here, it's incredibly graphic, paired with that fourth man's ruthless death. And though there's a bit of humor here as Jules and Vincent look each other over almost in sheer disbelief, that's all topped off with Vincent's immediate distaste and anger toward Philomar's Marvin, this poor kid cowering in the corner, barely able to comprehend what's happening to him. And then Vincent shoots him in the face. Sure, you can argue it was an accident that Vincent's careless with his guns, which is pretty accurate and pretty obvious, but who points a gun at someone's face like that if you're not prepping to kill him? He 100% did it on purpose. And because of that, now 100% reminds me of his ear-cutting brother. Though I suppose I should have gotten that with their almost near-identical deaths. Plus the way he says a please would be nice a little later on.
Please would be nice.
Come again?
The relation is obvious.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite? What was that?
According to an interview with Lamar, by the way, Travolta was the one who came up with the idea of Marvin getting shot in the face, as he was originally supposed to get shot in the throat and get put down with a headshot. Poor Phil, though. This was only his second film role, so I'm sure if handled right, a great, surprising, awful death scene could have helped launch his career as well. I think he ended up all right, though. Phil Lamar, I mean. Marvin? Well, I think he ended up crushing the tiny little pieces at Monster Joe's truck yard. Not so all right for him. We never actually do see Monster Joe in the finished film, though, do we? Just his daughter Raquel, played by Julia Sweeney, who is hot for cleaner. But the role was cast and a whole scene shot with the late, great Dick Miller, Mr. Futterman himself, where he and the Wolf allude to, well, many bodies being crushed up there. So many that they joke about a frequent flyer mile equivalent. A whole body for the price of a body part. I get why this scene was cut, but I gotta say, it's a real shame that we didn't get even a glimpse of Dick Miller in the final cut. Back to Jules, who, despite wanting to tell Marcellus he's done and out, we never do find out how he ends up doing. He handles having a dead guy's brain splattered all over him and his car rather professionally, and in doing so introduces us to his partner, Jimmy, played by Tarantino himself, and a little while later, thanks to the much appreciated help of Marcellus Wallace, the Wolf, who cares absolutely nothing for the speed limit, and as you know, played by Harvey Keitel, who of course also played Mr. White, aka Larry Dimmock in Reservoir Dogs. And Jimmy? His full name? Jimmy Dimmock. They're related. Obviously, Keitel isn't playing the same character here, but he does seem to go above and beyond to treat Jimmy extra especial, doesn't he? From complimenting his choice of coffee to buying a new oak bedroom set to compensate him for his troubles. Honestly, Oak's nice is one of the most criminally underrated lines in this film, and if it had been delivered by someone other than Tarantino, probably wouldn't be. But Tarantino chose to play Jimmy over Lance because he wanted to be behind the camera during Mia's overdose. Behind the camera for Jimmy's scenes? An uncredited Robert Rodriguez, who'd direct Tarantino again in the not-so-distant future. I have to tell you now, aside from the fact that Tarantino plays him instead of a more experienced character actor like Nick Cage or Michael Keaton, who are on the shortlist for him, or hey, why not Gary Oldman, I have a fundamental problem with Jimmy, even if I adore him calling Jules and Vincent a bunch of dorks after they change their clothes. And it entirely boils down to his use of the N-word. His overuse of it even. Yes, it pops up time and again in other portions of this film, though not anywhere near as often as the F-word, said 265 times. Yeah. But this is the N-word. Rather different, with a rather different weight to it, and never does it feel as egregious, profane, or unnecessary as it does coming out of his mouth in this segment. Now, granted, the line about the sign out front, brilliant. Brilliantly racist, but brilliant. And to his credit, brilliantly delivered. But it's an awful word. At this point, it should be a dead word. Unfortunately, Tarantino doesn't seem to agree. We'll talk about his use of the N-word several more times, in fact. But that'll come another time, because this has been a Drunk on Writing dissection excerpt exploring Pulp Fiction's final chapter, the Bonnie situation. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to check out the other excerpts or the full Pulp Fiction dissection. And if you'd like more like these, please subscribe to the channel or head on over to drunkonwriting.com where you can get more episodes more often. Until next time, cheers. Keep on writing.